All right, good evening again. I'd like to call to order the Tuesday, October 20th Select Board meeting for 6 p.m. Due to the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic, Governor Baker issued an emergency order temporarily suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law. Public bodies otherwise governed by the open meeting law are temporarily relieved from the requirement that meetings be held in public places, open and physically accessible to the public, so long as measures are taken to ensure public access to the body's deliberations through adequate alternative means. This meeting will be broadcast live on Channel 8 and Zoom. The public may participate remotely by following the call-in information on the bottom of the live broadcast screen. For the Zoom meeting information relating to remote participation, please contact Cindy Knox, the IT director at cknox@ayer.ma.us or 978-772-8252 prior to the meeting. So call this meeting to order. If we can, again, do the Pledge of Allegiance since it's a separate meeting. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Are there any changes to the agenda as it was presented?
No.
I don't have any myself.
I make a motion that the agenda be approved as submitted.
I will second.
Okay. Board Member Livingston, how do you vote?
Aye.
Board Member Hood, how do you vote?
Aye.
And the chair says aye, and the agenda is approved as it was submitted. I don't have any regular announcements this evening, but I would like...
Mr. Chair?
Oh, yeah.
If I could.
Absolutely. Go ahead.
So I know that all of us have received the bad news that this gentleman, Tommy Horgan, has passed away. I wanted to say some words because he was one of my first friends when my family and I moved back in 1979. Tommy was just this, he was funny. He loved his politics. We all know that. Was a huge Dukakis fan. Which I had forgotten about and was recently reminded, and then I remember. And he loved this town, loved history, and he will be sorely missed. And one of his proudest moments was when he was elected as town moderator. And this was like his dream come true. He was following in the steps of his uncle, Chucky Horgan, who had been town moderator in this town for, I think, over 20 years. I think everyone who ever met Tommy always got some story. And he was a really good guy. And he was very well known in this town, lived here all his life. And he will be sorely missed. And I just wanted to say, Tommy, you were great, and we're going to miss you. And there'll be no one else like you. So I'm just going to take a moment over here.
Thank you, Janice. I was going to ask if for the beginning of the meeting, if we could observe a moment of silence for the passing of Tom Horgan. And then the first order of business would be if there's any public input for this evening. Then we come to Superintendent Mark Wetzel for the Department of Public Works update.
I get all my technology to work here. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yep.
All right, I have 2 agenda items tonight. Thank you very much. The first item is the execution of the contract for the Groton Shirley Road utility improvements. This is a project that we've been planning for a while to connect the water main from the end of the existing dead-end water main on Groton Shirley Road down to a loop that comes out by the Hood distribution plant or warehouse. We get a lot of dirty water complaints up there. Plus, we have low fire flow protection. So this loop will both improve the water quality because it eliminates a stagnant dead end, and it will also provide a secondary feed to the area. And then the residents also petitioned to have sewer extended on this street. So we put an article in town meeting and that passed. So this project involves an extension of the water main as a loop and then putting a low pressure sewer system on the street down to, well, we have the option of going as far as James Brook Drive, but I've reached out to the residents there because it is fairly expensive and they're all new houses down there with new septic systems. So we may just go down to house number 48. I'm waiting to hear back from the customers. So so we designed the water main, we put it out to bid. We received 17 bids, and believe me, it's a lot of fun reading 17 bids out loud with about 30 bid items. And so the low bid was KJS LLC from Walpole, Massachusetts. I checked their references, and they received good references. And their bid was $598,159.25. So we recommend executing the contract with KJS LLC. And so we have a requested motion for the board to execute the contract.
Any questions from either board member or?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I have a question for Mark. When do you anticipate starting and completing the work on this project?
Well, one of the key issues of this project is that if you've ever driven down there, it's probably got the worst pavement in town, which is one of the reasons why we wanted to get the pipes in the ground before we actually pave the road next year. So we're hoping that he'll get started within the next couple of weeks and at least get the utilities in the ground this fall. So and then we'll do a temporary pavement and then we'll do the final paving in the spring. So a lot depends on when he can mobilize and what the weather is. But I've told him he can work as long as he's comfortable working in the winter conditions and can get the trench with temporary patch on it. But we're hoping to get started in a couple weeks.
Thank you.
Janice, do you have any questions?
No.
Okay. I guess one of my questions would be just, I know you said, so this is a new firm that the town has not worked with in the past, correct?
Correct.
And I imagine that part of your reference checking is with people they've worked with in the past would also be like their commitment to timeframes and like getting things done on a schedule that they commit to.
Yeah, so I have a series of questions that I ask, and I generally I start with people that I know, and so actually the engineering company that designed the project, they were used as a reference for 2 other projects. So they checked with the people that were involved in that and had good references on their quality of work and work organization and schedule, and they actually. This is he split off from, it was a two brothers that had a company, and they split off and each did their own. And as the previous company, they actually did a project in my neighborhood. So I discussed that with the town engineer in my town, and they also got a good reference, as well as two other towns.
No, great.
One of the
That's
things
all I have.
one of the things with municipal bidding is it's very hard to disqualify the low bidder. They basically have to have defaulted on a project, or you can recommend against awarding, but you may get a protest, and it's very hard to have the state allow you to disqualify a low bidder unless they've done a really poor job.
Okay, thank you. Do we have a motion? Or
Yes, Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to execute the contract for the Groton Shirley Road utility improvements with KJS LLC in the amount of $598,159.25.
Seconded.
okay, there's a motion. Board Member Hood, how do you vote?
Aye.
Board Member Livingston, how do you vote?
Aye.
And the chair says aye. The motion passes to execute the contract with KJS LLC.
Thank you. So the second item is the execution of the contract for Spectacle Pond PFAS treatment facility. So general bids for the Spectacle Pond water treatment plant PFAS treatment facilities were opened on September 24th. We received 4 bids ranging from $5,145,889 to $6,277,677. Winston Builders Corporation was the low bidder. They're the contractor that's currently finishing up the Grove Pond PFAS treatment plant. They're also working on our wastewater treatment plant upgrade. They did in 2015 and 16, they did the upgrades to the Grove Pond well field. I don't know if they've done other stuff in town, but I've actually worked with them on municipal projects since the early 80s. So they do a very good job. They understand how to work with towns, how to follow schedules, how to keep the paperwork moving. We recommend executing the contract with Winston Builders Corporation in the amount of $5,145,889. One of the things I'd like to point out is, so this project is being funded under the state revolving loan fund. So we get a 0% interest rate, which has very good terms for the town, as well as there's no cost for short-term borrowing. We do need additional money for the engineering services related to construction. So that's going to be approved at, or will be an article for the fall town meeting, but we do have sufficient funding at this point to award the contract, and this will allow us to get started with organizing the project and getting things scheduled. There's probably not a lot of work that's going to get done this fall, but they want to get out there and start doing some grading and some of the temporary facilities and get as much done so they can get in the spring and get going with the foundation right away.
Questions from the members?
I don't have any questions.
And I will have a presentation at town meeting on this project.
Chair,
Yes.
I'll make
Board
a
Member
motion. Yeah, I'll make a motion that the select board vote to execute the contract with Winston Builder Corps for the Spectacle Pond Water Treatment Plant PFAS treatment facilities in the amount of $5,145,889.
I will second.
Okay. So the motion has been seconded. Board Member Livingston, how do you vote?
Aye.
Board Member Hood, how do you vote?
Aye.
And the chair says aye. So the motion to grant the contract has passed.
Thank you very much.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Mark.
Thanks, Mark.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Mr. Badurka? Yeah, while Mark is still there, could I just ask if we know when a line will be painted on Washington down the middle? This morning, for the second time, as I was headed south, there was a car driving on the left-hand lane in the wrong lane going south, and the plate was from New York, so obviously they didn't know that Washington was a two-way street. And this is the second time now. The other time was about like 2 weeks ago. And I just wonder if Mark knew when the line, at least one line, will be painted down the middle.
I know it's scheduled. I don't know exactly when. One of the issues is it's a relatively, we're doing actually 3 of the roads that we paved. Sandy Pond Road by Central Ave, Washington Street, and Groton Harvard Road by Central Ave. So those are in the works. I would guess it's going to be within a week or 10 days. Because it is getting cold out, and so they can't get out and pave when the road's too cold.
Thank you very much, Board.
Thank you for your question, David. Thank you, Mark.
You're welcome.
The next item this evening will be the town manager's report.
Mr. Chairman, members of the Select Board, good evening. Under the administrative update, you have in your packet all of the town warrants that were reviewed, approved, and signed since the board last met on October 6th. And in terms of the administrative update, before I get into the action items, as everyone's aware, the East Main Street construction project is underway. It's being overseen by the state. It's a state project. But a special thanks to DPW and police for their efforts as we move forward with this important project. Most of our time over the last 2 weeks has been largely focused on the beginning of the budget process, as well as preparations for town meeting. The capital directive went out. Capital budgets are due back on October 30th. I had a very active meeting with the DPW superintendent and the finance manager regarding DPW capital for the upcoming year. And we look forward to meeting with the capital planning committee with a good plan given the current circumstances. And then the operating budget directive will go out at the beginning of November, with budgets due back that first Friday in December. We are moving up that process for 2 reasons. One, to take into account the bylaw change that puts town meeting at the last Monday in April, so it sort of moves things up about 2 weeks. And also, again, to try to get the initial budget and all of that information in before the holidays to allow more time for the process moving forward. As everybody knows, early voting is underway and has been very successful so far. A special thanks to the town clerk and all of the election staff that continue to make that safe and efficient. The town hall boiler project has been completed, so the town hall boiler has been completely replaced with a more efficient unit. This was funded through the Green Communities grant. So we should be experiencing, besides a better heating system, more efficiencies moving forward. The IT department has finished the server project, upgrading and replacing the server here at Town Hall, and now moving to the fire station and then to DPW. They're also finishing phase 2 of the Town Hall access project with the key cards. As the board will recall, it was a 2-phase project. The first phase was the exterior doors. Now the facilities department is doing all of the internal doors. So again, making a lot of progress on the final sort of outstanding capital projects from last year. In terms of the COVID-19 update, again, things remain relatively status quo. We are cautiously concerned about a recent uptick in the numbers that folks may have seen on the state level and even on the local level. On the state map, the town of Ayer last week went from white to yellow, and it's a white, green, yellow, red situation. And I spoke with the health agent and the Board of Health, if the Select Board for a future meeting would like to have any discussion or so forth about the numbers and also about the issues of contact tracing. And that's one of the challenges that everybody's facing, is with the actual contact tracing system as more people are going out there. So again, we're also been advised, and we're in pretty good shape, to have at least a 60-day supply of PPE for each department, which we do have. We are going to have a meeting led by Chief Johnston on 2 issues. One is the PPE plan and inventory for the whole winter. And secondly, the fire chief is going to convene the emergency personnel to review the town's shelter plan. The town has a certified shelter plan. However, we want to make sure that obviously COVID-19 protocols are incorporated into that. So we'll keep the board updated, and that would be in the event that we need to activate the shelter system. And lastly, in speaking with Dr. Malone, again, school continues to move forward. As many of you are aware, the school committee recently voted to extend more of the in-person instruction starting in November, and things continue to move forward up there. In terms of action items, the first one is, you have in your packet, we've been talking about the FY22 budget calendar, and I appreciate all of your input, and I know many of you sit on some of the various committees and so forth in getting those dates in there. We've made a lot of progress. I know that we still have to get the buy board actually scheduled in there, which we will. But at this point, unless there's any questions or further input on the draft calendar, I would respectfully recommend the board consider approving it. Of course, if we have to add something or make any changes, that's subject to approval by the board.
I see no issues with it.
I have no problems with the calendar.
I didn't have any issues with it either.
Do you want us to vote and approve it, Robert?
Please,
Okay.
if you would consider.
All right. I'll make a motion that the select board approve the 2022 budget calendar.
I'll
FY
second.
2022, I'm sorry, FY 2022 budget calendar.
I'll second still.
Okay. Board Member Livingston, how do you vote?
Aye.
Board Member Hood, how do you vote?
Aye.
And the chair says aye. So the 2022 finance budget calendar has been approved as presented.
I got excited for a second thinking we were jumping right into 2022 and 2020 would finally be over.
No such luck today.
Thank
Everyone
you.
yells Jumanji at midnight on New Year's Eve.
And next, just a brief Fall Town meeting update. We are ready and prepared for a successful and safe town meeting on Monday, October 26th at 7 p.m. in the high school auditorium. And preparations that we've made will be following a similar plan that we did on the 15th, but like anything, when you have done it for the first time unprecedented, you learn things to build upon. So the first thing is the IT department and APAC, we hired a private professional consultant, which will be covered, the funding will be covered under the CARES Act because it's a COVID-19 expense, to take care of the whole issue of the overflow room. And what I mean by take care of the issue, and we're actually doing the testing tomorrow to verify it, is that in the event that the overflow room is needed, the participants in the overflow room will have direct audio and direct visual with the auditorium, and the moderator in the auditorium will have the same direct access. So obviously, there was a technological failure at the last time in terms of there was a a significant delay that created a lot of issues. So we have a dedicated professional firm that's going to handle that technology piece, and we're actually going to test the whole system tomorrow to make sure that works. So that's one piece. The second thing we learned, we had hoped that folks would just stand from their seat and project to ask questions or offer a comment. Obviously, with requiring face masks, which will still be required, not everybody can project, or the mask itself affects that. So, and this had come up from the board sometime before this idea, that we're going to have these boom mics. We have a couple of folks dedicated to using these microphones, so that when an individual wants to speak, they'll still stand where they are, but rather than relying on their projection or so forth, there will be a microphone to facilitate that as well moving forward. And the facilities department also worked on the main auditorium some to figure out that, there's some more seating than we had last time. Again, safe seating that meets the state requirement as far as the social distancing. So we're confident that we will have a successful town meeting on Monday, and that there is a good plan in place for that. We're asking everybody that attends to please sign in with their contact information like last time. If you don't have a face mask, one will be provided. And if there's anybody that has any questions leading up to town meeting or so forth, and sort of a public shout out, to please contact my office. We want to do everything we can to make it safe and successful for folks attending. I know we discussed the warrant last time. I do have a brief presentation, a brief overview of Article 4, but I didn't know if members had any other questions related to the warrant. I know we discussed that at length the last time you approved it. I just want to point out on the town's website, we do have a link that we will be promoting that has additional support information for articles as they become available. So as of right now, Article 2, the forward funding of the pension, Mr. Johnston's town meeting presentation, that'd be Kevin Johnston, is on that link. There is the feasibility study report on the senior center, which is Article 4, is on that link. And Superintendent Wetzel had prepared a memo regarding the overview of sort of Article 9, which is the extension of the utilities. Those are all housed for the public, if you will, on that link for information that may be of interest. But are there any other questions or concerns related to town meeting as we approach Monday?
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Mr. Bedurtha.
Just two questions, and I may have missed it, but we're not going to require couples and families now to sit 6 seats apart from each other?
Through the chair, that's correct. That's another improvement we made, that couples and families, we will have seating docents, if you will, when you come, can sit together.
I appreciate that very much. And and we did, as we talked in the beginning, what's the gentleman's name that will be substituting for Tom?
Through the chair, I'm assuming you're referring to who will moderate the meeting.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Tom moderator. Yes, who's going to moderate?
So through the chair to Mr. Bedurtha, given the unfortunate and unforeseen circumstance with the moderator passing, what will happen at town meeting is the town clerk will open the town meeting up, call it to order, and the town meeting will elect a moderator for just that meeting. Mr. Sam Goodwin, who did the last one on June 15th, has expressed his interest and willingness to do that. And the plan will be to ask the town meeting to elect the interim moderator. So that will be the first order of business on Monday night.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Any other questions about the town meeting? And of course, if they come up, obviously select board members, you know how to reach me. And for members of the public, please call Carly or I if you have any questions, concerns, or anything we can do to accommodate to make it a positive and safe experience. The next item in the packet, Mr. Chairman, I'm respectfully requesting a vote of the board to accept a grant in the amount of $5,000 from the Center for Tech and Civic Life for the town clerk's office. And a special thanks to the town clerk, Susan Copeland, who took the initiative to secure this grant to be used for election-related matters as a result of the whole COVID-19 situation. The grant is $5,000 because it's a grant to the town. We are asking that the board vote to accept that grant to the town. And Mr. Chair, if there are any questions on the grant specifically, you do have the letter from Ms. Copeland, and I see that Ms. Copeland is also on the meeting platform.
I do not have any questions. And do either of the board members have questions?
I do not have any questions.
So I'll make a motion that the select board accept the grant in the amount of $5,000 from the Center for Tech and Civic Life as outlined in the packet.
I will second.
Okay. Board member Livingston, how do you vote?
Aye.
Board member Hood, how do you vote?
Aye.
And the chair says aye. So the motion to accept the grant has been passed. And yes, thank you very much to the town clerk for your hard work in seeking out funds to assist with this election cycle.
And then lastly, and yes, thank you, Madam Clerk. Lastly, Mr. Chairman, the last item I have is I titled under my report is sort of an overview of Article 4, which is the article regarding the West Main Street property for a new senior center. And if I could, through you, Mr. Chair, just have a few moments, I wanted to give a brief overview to the board of some of the, and to the public of some of the major issues. As I put in the warrant, there will be a presentation on this at town meeting for Article 4 that will have some more images in detail, if you will. But for the purposes of this evening, I just wanted to give a brief overview of Article 4. So Article 4 is looking to do two things. It's looking for town meeting to authorize the town to proceed with the acquisition of a piece of real property. And under Mass General Law, town meeting has to authorize the acquisition. The second thing the article looks to do is it looks to authorize borrowing of funds up to $750,000 for the purposes of acquiring the property. Now it says $750,000 on the warrant article, and in the explanatory note, the fixed price of the property is $670,000, and there's an additional $80,000 being asked for contingencies or unforeseen issues related to the acquisition. That's so the land itself is $670,000. You don't have to come back, if you will, to town meeting. So I just want to give an overview, and we'll go back into detail in a second of what the actual article is asking to do. The other key thing is that the article, there are contingencies to safeguard the town's interests in the acquisition. Two of them, specifically, one is a 21E environmental assessment has to be done. It's done by an independent licensed site professional that the town would hire. If the environmental assessment deems that the property is prohibitive, whether in terms of cost for remediation or not in the town's best interests, then the acquisition wouldn't move forward. The second thing, it also, as required not only during the acquisition, but required by the select board, fair market appraisal of the property also needs to be done and factored in. But before I come back onto the warrant article, I just wanted to, there have been many questions as to, why a new senior center. And as I put in front of you, the 2017 master plan identified a new senior center as a high priority for the town. Identify a location that accommodates the spatial needs of the senior center to expand the capacity for services and programs. And that's one of the largest challenges, many of you know, we have in the existing space is just not sufficient for the senior center to do a lot of their programs down there. It has been further compounded now by COVID-19 and social distancing requirements further reduce the ability for the current space to be used for many events. As a result of that master plan identification, as you can see, town meeting approved funding in the amount of $30,000 for a senior center feasibility study, which was Article 15 of the May 14th, 2018 ATM. What are some of the current challenges? And I put over in the orange, you'll see, I refer to page 5 of the feasibility study. The feasibility study is on the website, and specifically on page 5, it will go into detail about the current challenges. And there's some of them I've highlighted tonight, I'll go through just briefly. The main thing is lack of adequate functional space, as I mentioned. And in August, I asked the facilities director, Ms. Swanfeld, the director of the COA, and Mr. Johnson, the benefits and payroll manager, to do an analysis if we apply the state requirements for social distancing to the current senior center at 18 Pond Street. What could we do in terms of programs? What could we do inside the building? And unfortunately, it's very minimal at best. And of course, at town meeting, we'll talk in a little more detail with that, and Karen will get into some points, and we have some photos to that. So the limited space and size prohibits a diverse range of spaces needed for physical activities, arts and crafts, games, and socializing. There's a lack of professional office and staff space. There's specifically a lack of any adequate private areas there for the purposes of discussing confidential matters like finances, health, nutrition, and Karen can speak to this in more detail. There's just no professional office space that also takes into account privacy and confidentiality matters that they deal with a lot of seniors. There's really no space for outdoor activities. Yes, there's Peroni Park down the hill, if you will, from there, but for any of you who've been to 18 Pond Street, it's just, there's a few parking spaces and you go right into the building, which goes into the next one. There's no real entry that is welcoming or attractive or visible or accessible. Another huge one, the current kitchen is not adequate to meet the growing needs of the center's food program. We are in the process of doing the town's update and review of the ADA plan, and in doing that, there are various ADA violations as identified by the town's plans, and unfortunately, the current space has the most violations of any of the town's facilities. The restrooms do not meet the needs of all seniors or ADA requirements, and there's insufficient parking for the public, staff, and visitors. There's only a handful of parking spaces we looked at, and there's no room to expand parking, if you will, at that site. Next. So after the $30,000 was appropriated, the town went through a procurement process and ended up hiring Abacus architects and planners. And they are experts on designing what they call an active living center. And I think we may want to adopt that term as we move forward. However, at this time, we're calling it a senior center because if we put active living center, say, on the warrant or so forth, it might create some confusion. But I think it's important to take away when you look at the study that the term senior centers is completely changed, and it's more about active living. As many of us know, seniors are as the baby boomers and other generations now are aging into place, they have different needs. We're not just looking for a center for some of the traditional senior center activities, which of course are important and will continue to do, but seniors are looking for a more dynamic space. They're looking for more physical activity, a lot of things involving technology, and so forth. So you'll hear the consultants talk about this active living center in the report. And I think that's a much better term that we should maybe move towards as we move forward. There was a committee put together, myself, the assistant town manager, Ms. Antonellis, Karen Swanfeld, the director, Mark Wetzel, Dan Van Schalwick, the town engineer, Alan Minoyan, the director of community and economic development. And I also want to point out that the feasibility study, as I'll get to in a moment, the biggest piece that we spent the most time on was trying to find a site. And on the site selection meetings, and I want to point out, the members of the board of directors of the Council on Aging were brought in for their input as well during that phase of the study committee. Next. So as part of, once we had the consultant, we started the feasibility study, and the feasibility study was charged with obviously looking at the existing facility at 18 Pond Street, the existing programs, and then looking to the future as to what do folks want. And as many of you recall, the town hosted a public community meeting on September 30th, 2019 at the Ayer Shirley Regional High School that was very well attended by a lot of our seniors that use the center, members of the community and so forth. And we spent a good couple of hours going through sort of just conceptual visioning exercises as to what types of programs people wanted, didn't want. Again, this is all in the feasibility study report, but we got a lot of input from the folks attending that night. And one of the most popular programs is the physical fitness programs that the center has done. In fact, before COVID-19, many of those were at capacity in the space. So we had that community meeting back in September 30th of 2019. And then from that, it was evident from the analysis that we're going to need a new facility. 18 Pond Street we looked at the existing property. There was no opportunity there for expansion, and it has served its purpose. So then the challenge became, well, where could this be constructed? And a lot of time went into looking at possible sites. And one of the challenges we have in Ayer, as the board knows, we don't have a lot of land. We don't have a lot of town land. We don't have any existing town facilities that could easily be used for this. One of the things that I know the board had discussed was, if we constructed a new elementary school, perhaps we could retain the Page Hilltop School and convert that. And that's a great idea. The problem was the time horizon on that. So make a long story short, we came down to 7 possible sites that were looked at. 8, and this is all in the study. 18 Pond Street, the existing facility, did not have, besides having a lot of deficiencies and concerns, there's no room or opportunity for any easy expansion there. 99 Fitchburg Road at that time was the former David E. Ross building. The major concern was its proximity, almost out of town, if you will, was also on septic. And there were some other challenges with that site. Obviously, since then, that site has been acquired. 106 Park Street was the land sort of across from Tiny's, if you will. One of the issues is that land is encroached considerably on by wetlands and flood concerns there. Also, Fitchburg Road is a very busy road traffic-wise, and as far as curb cut entries and as well as parking, made that site a challenge. Zero Brook Street, we looked at again the area down sort of where the Department of Public Works is. Again, there was not a viable fit, if you will. 6 Groton Road is the former Horn building, right across from the parking facility. Looking at that as a potential site, one of the big issues is considerable demolition would be involved. Also, issues of fitting the facility and parking were a challenge. 115 Washington Street was looked at as well, as we're always doing our due diligence there. Again, not the optimal fit, as you'll see in the report. And then 211 West Main Street, which we will talk about for a moment. Next. So 211 West Main Street was identified by the consultant and also by the study group and so forth as the optimal site that you would, if you just could pick an optimal site to put it, this met that criteria. It's a 4.5 acre site. It's large enough to support the construction of an approximately 11,770 square foot building. And we came up with that size building through the community forum and a bunch of work by the consultant and so forth based on the space needed. It also will allow for 75 parking spaces that are accessible. The rear of the site is appropriate for walking trails and outdoor activities, and it actually abuts up by the river. The location, the accessibility and walkability of the site, the West Main Street form-based code, which town meeting passed about revitalizing that corridor. This is an opportunity for an anchor investment there. And it could be a catalyst for further economic and community development on the West Main Street corridor. And this is an opportunity to provide a 21st century senior center for Ayer. If you look at the last 25 years, we have built a new police station, a new fire station, renovated the town hall. We built the DPW admin building, the DPW highway garage. Renovations had been done at the library. And this all things this town should be extremely proud of, because many towns, we have excellent facilities. It just seems that this now is the time to now invest in the seniors in the senior center or the active living center. Okay, next. So Article 4, as I mentioned, of the fall special town meeting does 2 things. And one of the things, when a municipality goes to acquire land, it is a process, and that it should be a process, and it's not an easy linear process that fits into neat timelines, especially when you're dealing with a private property owner, because this is private property as well. So I just want to reiterate that the Article 4, it would authorize the town to proceed with the acquisition of 211 West Main Street, subject to the following. So it's important to note that if Article 4 passes on Monday, that doesn't mean that the town just buys the property. There are contingencies. One of them is the satisfactory 21E environmental assessment. We are aware that this site, like many sites, has some environmental history to it. We're also aware that previous owners spent over $1 million in remediation on the soil. We're also aware that the existing building, which was a video store, rental store, and prior to that, a dry cleaners at some point, there were air quality issues in the building that were monitored and under monitoring. Obviously, that we would be demolishing that building. I want to point that out too, so folks understand that the intent isn't to convert that building into the senior center. That would be demolished. But if the environmental assessment comes back that there are extensive environmental remediation and extensive costs, then the town, through the select board, really needs to look at, okay, is it in the best interests of the town to continue? And I know before my time here, a lot of effort and cost went into remediating the site where the fire station is. And that's a larger discussion, I think, for the town when we get to that point. The first point is to do the environmental assessment and get all of the current information in what we're looking at. The second piece is the land appraisal, to use the appraisal, if you will, also as a tool with respect to the price and so forth. The $670,000 is the private owners are willing to sell, and that's what they are asking for. Obviously, that wasn't a starting point. That amount, as we'll show at town meeting, we have comps of considerable land and of that amount that sold in that same range or even higher. It's too simple to just go to the appraised value of the land at the town assessors and the appraised amount. Very little land, if you will, sells obviously at the appraised amount. But we will talk more about the price as well. Next. And then the second piece is it asks the town to authorize the borrow authorization up to $750,000, as I mentioned. At this time, the land price, and that's a firm price, is $670,000. That's the land. And then why is the article for $750,000? Because we're recommending an additional $80,000 in borrow authorization in the event that there are unforeseen contingencies related to the acquisition of the land. This recommendation of $80,000 for contingency came from the town's finance manager, and I tend to agree that if my point C, the town will only borrow the amount that is necessary. So it's important to note that if Article 4 passes on Monday, it's given the borrow authorization. If the actual acquisition of the land, because of environmental issues, issues not in the interest of the town, and the town, through the purchase and sale agreement with the select board, decides not to move forward, then obviously we're not going to borrow any money. If it works out that it can move forward, the definitive land price is $670,000, that would be borrowed. The additional $80,000, that would only be borrowed, and maybe only a portion if necessary, for any contingencies related to it. And I sort of again touch upon this, that the acquisition does have safeguards, and discuss this at length with the select board. The 21E environmental assessment is one of the key first steps. The land appraisal is another key one. And we actually have funding in the budget for appraisals. So we'll move forward. And then the purchase and sale agreement that would be developed would have these as legally binding contingencies or safeguards in that. Lastly, as I put on the bottom, this is only, Article 4 is only for the land for the project. So the project itself, the actual building, will still need to go through the town's capital and budgetary processes, and town meeting would need to vote to approve the funding for the facility. The earliest that could possibly be, and that's on an extreme accelerated, would be the next town meeting, spring of 2021. But I just want to stress again that Article 4 is not for the total project, it's just for the land. The second phase is the actual project, but we can't, without a site and without the land, we can't move forward, if you will, with the project. Okay. And so many ask, well, why is it a two-part process, and why Article 4 now? It's a two-part process because, one, we don't have a town-owned land site that can support this project. That was the whole main thrust of the study. So we have to, and we don't have an abandoned, or if you will, an available adequate municipal building. So we have to secure a location. And in this case, the location is a piece of private property. And so we should start the process of moving towards acquiring that. Now, we understand that with the environmental issues or other issues, the town ultimately may not acquire it, but we need to start that process. Also, the private property owner is willing to sell it. It's not like it is actually available. There's other interest in it. So that's an opportunity. So part one would be to acquire 211 West Main Street. The next step would be town meeting authorization. If Article 4 doesn't pass, then we will not move forward, and we will have to go back to looking at the issue of a site selection, which we spent a considerable amount of professional resources in looking at a site. And I wish there was a perfect site, a site that didn't have any issues. If Article 4 passes, then a purchase and sales agreement between the select board and the owner, and in that, the contingencies of the environmental assessment and the appraisal. So just because if the select board enters into a purchase and sales agreement, that doesn't mean that the town, if the environmental piece or the appraisal piece, so price and environment, are of concern, they don't have to move forward, and that's that. The second part on the bottom, assuming we acquire the land, is the design and the funding of the new center, if you will. And this will require future town meeting approvals. It's going to require additional funding for design. The design, when we get into the specifics, would also have a public component to the process. It would have to go out to bid, and ultimately town meeting would have to approve the funding for that. So to conclude, and I appreciate everybody's opportunity this evening to sort of just give a brief overview of sort of a preview of the presentation to come. To conclude, an investment, this project is an investment not only in our seniors, but also in the future of the town. It would represent a significant investment at a key part of the town. And I think we need to, I'll conclude with asking folks to continue to think of this active living center component. We're not looking to build walls, between seniors and youth and so forth, that this wouldn't just, this is obviously would have the senior programs, but the facility itself at 12,000 square feet would have other community spaces, other opportunities that the town as a whole can use, meetings and so forth. So that's sort of a brief overview. Lastly, why I should say it happened this way. Obviously, we were completing the process when the whole COVID-19 pandemic came in the spring. As you saw in my timeline, in the fall, we had the community meeting and so forth. And just as we're coming into spring, we were not able to complete some of the public aspects of that, and the report was delayed, which we now have. So again, regardless of that, we're confident that we should at least take the next step in moving towards the acquisition of the property. So thank you.
Thank you, Robert. Any questions from the board members?
Nope.
I have just one question for Robert. If for some reason either the article doesn't pass, or during the environmental studies something comes back and we have to walk away from the site, would the town need to do another feasibility study for the senior center to look at alternative sites? Or would we use that kind of as a baseline to continue to look for sites?
I think that if Article 4 didn't pass, with the consultant, we would come back and look at, again, the concept with perhaps some of the other sites. There are going to be some challenges. I mean, that's what makes this one the optimal site, obviously, but look at that. And we will have to sort of go back to the drawing board. I just want to, all of the other sites that I mentioned, those sites I mentioned, anytime we've done this before when we acquire property, we will still have to do the 21E environmental and appraisal, as you know. So what I'm getting at is some of these other sites have similar issues, if you will. But yes, we would have to go back to the drawing board and then come back with to see what the other sites could potentially, what we could do there.
Okay, thank you.
I have no questions. Janice?
No, no questions.
Okay. Well, I appreciate the time, and like I mentioned, when we get to Article 4 on Monday, we'll have a formal presentation that will have some very good visuals as well. But I did want to give sort of an overview as an opportunity as we prepare on Monday. That concludes my report. I thank the board for the time and your consideration.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Mr. Berderta.
are you going to take a couple of quick questions from the general public?
Sure, go ahead.
Just as part of the town meeting, is there an explanation as to why we're purchasing both parcels on West Main Street? And because we don't need to, they're separate owners, and 211 is only 0.21 acres, and that has the contaminated building on it. The other acreage is 4 acres and would involve no contamination. Is there a reason why we're doing both, even though they're, it leave you with an ugly building in the front, but why are we buying both parcels? Are these the questions that can come up at town meeting?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, they will come up at town meeting, and we'll have the maps. So the two parcels, there's the large one and then there's a smaller one. So combining, we want to acquire both of them for the complete parcel, number one. Number two, they're both listed as different named trusts, but it's the same owner. So it's the same owner that has the two parcels, if you will, in two different trust names.
Okay, well, that's much cleaner. And we're also going to deal with the railroad easement through the parcel. That's something else will be discussed at town meeting?
Yes. Yep. We have a map, and there is a rail easement there. However, the easement has been legally vacated, and we'll explain that.
Great. And the last thing, just is, I know I've been in touch with DEP, and I know they haven't done a 6-month review on 211 since 2014, or even though they're required to do that. So I am interested in see what the newest is, because I see we're missing all the reports from 2014 to present, which was a requirement every 6 months.
So to that point, Mr. Chairman, we're aware of that as well. Starting at, the reports do end at 2014 because the owner, it was a previous owner to this owner. It was about $15,000 a year to do the monitoring, and they stopped doing that. And this new owner assumed it. That's why we want to do the 21E environmental assessment to get, if you will, a 2020 information about the whole site. And it's important to note that a lot of that monitoring that stopped in 2014 had to do with the air quality in that building. Obviously, the building would be demolished as part of our project.
Okay, I understand that, and I also understand that we would have to install a vapor barrier underneath, and I'm assuming that we're not going to build anything on top of that building. So, but if we can, as long as we have an open discussion at town meeting, then I can bring any of those issues up. I appreciate the time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Berderta.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
this is Janet Pravadakis asking one question.
Sure, go ahead, Janet.
All right, on the property of the 0 Brook Street, Robert went ahead and stated that it just didn't meet the qualifications. Is it because the property is too small?
Correct. That was the biggest limiting factor was the size, Janet, and the size for the building footprint, but
Yeah.
also the parking, because that's the other thing is this site on 211, we can do 75 spaces. It was really an issue of size.
Okay, that's what I had a funny feeling, but I just wanted to check. Thank you so much.
Yep.
Thank you, Janet. Anybody else? Okay.
Mr. Chair.
Looks
there
like
she is.
someone has a comment.
I just wanted to say this was like one of the best reports I've seen on the Ayer website. The pictures, the visuals, like I really could tell where I was, and I got a lot of information from it. So that was my only comment.
Thank you. I agree. It was
Yeah.
really well done.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Robert. The next item we have is new business and selectmen's questions. There was nothing listed here. I did want to maybe suggest that we did get a lot of response and from our police forum, and there's been a lot of response about moving forward with the next steps. There's been some interest in having a discussion about race and diversity, and so maybe if we could think about bringing that up and planning for that at our next meeting. Does anybody else have anything for today under that?
No.
Okay. All right, perfect. Then we can move on to approval of meeting minutes. From the October 6th, 2020 board meeting.
I had no issues.
I had no issues.
Neither did I.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to approve the meeting minutes for October 6th, 2020 as presented.
Seconded.
All right. Board Member Hood, how do you vote?
Aye.
Board Member Livingston, how do you vote?
Aye.
And the chair says aye, and the meeting minutes from October 6th, 2020 have been approved. And that brings us to the end of our agenda.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion that the select board adjourn at 7:07 p.m.
I will second.
Okay. Board Member Livingston, how do you vote?
Aye.
Board Member Hood, how do you vote?
Aye.
And the chair says aye, and this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.